So this meditation technique is one that's maybe kind of deceptively simple. It's definitely a good way to train your smile muscles and your smile response, because if you follow the technique, I think you'll find that if you're anything like me, pretty quickly you're doing nothing but smiling, and maybe even smiling to the point of exhaustion. And I'll talk a little bit about that too. But the technique is this. You take your meditative pose, right? Sitting, standing, laying down, whatever you're feeling. Take a few breaths. If possible, in through the nose, out through the mouth. If possible, try to generate it from the belly, so that the belly is pulling the breath into the nose instead of sucking kind of up in the head or even from the chest. And then once you're ready, kind of get into the meditative technique. And the technique is this, right? Notice what's going on, right? Attend to what's happening. And what we're trying to notice, kind of the object of our intention, is sensations, right? Physical bodily sensations. Sensations from the hands and the feet, sensations from the chest, sensations from the internal organs, electrical sensations in our neurochemical system, in the nervous system, the movement of fluid through the body, all those things. We're trying to tend to is the raw physical sensations of experience. When we notice anything other than a sensation, we smile, right? So if during the 20-minute meditation, we had such focus and attentiveness that all we noticed was the sensations of the body, like the ones I just mentioned, then we would have is essentially a neutral expression throughout the entirety of the meditation. But again, that's a rare thing for a human being to be able to do. I think even the most highly trained meditators, over a stretch of time, are going to have something other than that come into our awareness, right? Our minds have a really difficult time being able to fixate or focus on just one thing. And so if we're sitting there, right, taking a few breaths, we're like, okay, kind of get the legs going here, kind of get the arms, right? If we have kind of an internal narrative that's talking about what we're noticing, right? Feels the sensation and goes, ooh, feet, right? Notice, what is that, right? That's maybe a thought, kind of an inner dialogue, right? It's kind of maybe almost like a little narrator for our meditation, right? Smile. We've noticed something that's not a sensation, right? If we have a memory come back, right? Something from the deep past, something from our recent past, something from like the immediate past, right? Like literally like the last breath I just took, something comes back up, right? That's not a sensation. Smile. Thinking about the future, the deep future, the near future, smile. Thinking about the present, right? But an alternative present. Oh, I'm sitting down. Maybe I should be standing. I'm standing. Maybe I should be sitting. Does this technique really work? Why did I come up with it? Who is this guy anyway? Why am I listening to him, right? Smile, right? Subtly, as you go in, you'll notice there's sensations, and then there's often thoughts that are in a way connected to a sensation. So what I'll do is I'll have a thought come up, and it'll be maybe kind of a vibrating, angry or anxious thought, and it usually grabs some topic in my life, right? It'll grab onto money, it'll grab onto interpersonal relationships, shame, something like that. But what I'll notice is that kind of vibrating energy of that thought, kind of that angsty thought, oftentimes will match a vibration of a sensation in me. I get a lot of them in my rib area. I'll feel them in my throat sometimes. And so one thing you can do is you can notice simultaneously a thought and a sensation, right? Now, in this case, in the discipline, we would smile because we notice something other than a sensation. And I think what you can do is then you're noticing two things in that case. You're noticing the thought, right? The angsty thought, oh God, this or that. And you're actually noticing a relationship between a thought and a feeling, right? That's another thing that is not itself a sensation. And so I think you can kind of get part of how this technique works is it's kind of revealing how much of our attentiveness, right, of our mental energy is absorbed in things other than the physical experience of being alive in this moment. Because the physical experience of being alive in this moment is sensational, right? It's the feelings of exactly what's going on in our body, right? And even our physical senses, in a way, are feelings, if you think about it, right? If you kind of look, normally we think of the eyes as kind of just being windows to look out in the world, but you can actually feel the physical sensation of your eyes, right? And then looking. You can feel the sensation of, vibrations coming through your ear and things like this. Of course, we normally don't pay attention to this because we're focusing on is the content. What am I seeing out there? What am I hearing out there? Where did it come from? What does it mean? Is it good or bad? Is it right or wrong? Is it a threat? Is it a friend? Is it a foe? Is this going to be finally what I'm looking for? Oh my God, keep it away. Right? We're so caught up in our reactions to it, we don't actually notice the raw physical experience of what it is, right? Likewise with touch, with smell, with taste, right? And I think one teaching from the Buddha that blew my mind when I heard it, and partly it's the way it's phrased, which is, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the teaching is, if you want to learn essentially the path to freedom, right, the path to bliss and nirvana, the path to getting away from your fixations on things, which are what's causing your suffering, right, in the Buddhist philosophy, do one thing. Present moment awareness directed toward the body. Present moment awareness directed toward the body. He said that's the path. Of course, the Buddha said a lot of other things during his life, had a lot of other teachings, but when asked to kind of define what is the path leading to the destination being the end of suffering, that's what the Buddha said. Present moment awareness directed toward the body. And that, I think, is one of the kind of the philosophical underpinnings for this meditation technique is, first, when we do it, I think what we're going to realize is how little we actually do that. How little of our present moment awareness is really directed toward what's happening in our body. It's directed really toward our reactions to what's happening and all the thought that's kind of chattering beneath the surface. Or, seeing relationships between things, seeing cause and effect relationships, seeing connections. It's not to say those things are bad in any way, but I think we're, as a species, generally kind of out of balance. We're way more tilted toward the cognitive focus, way less down toward the somatic focus. I know I am an example of that to a T. And so this technique is kind of a way to bring things more into balance, right? We don't want to just have awareness of the body exclusively. Again, I think deep practitioners can kind of get there and can do some magical stuff from that place. But what we're talking about is really getting more into a balance, bringing that cognitive and somatic balance or relationship into more harmony and balance instead of it being so heavily tilted toward the cognitive and so little toward the somatic. And so what I like about this too is normally, or in a lot of meditation techniques, we're told to notice things or even like label things, but you can see that just re-engages the minds here. And I've got the 3 different brains. You got the head brain or the noodle, again, 100 billion neurons here. You got the gut brain or the enteric brain, literally neurons in the gut. There's about 100 million of them. And then you actually have brain in the heart too, about 40,000 neurons in and around the heart area. And we're always using our brain. The question is, how are we using the brain? And here what we're trying to do is to train the brain to attend to the raw physical sensations of the body, right? And to attend less to kind of the clouds or the sparks or the lightning bolts of thought, right? And getting drifted and caught up into those, instead staying present, staying grounded. And so using this technique and smiling anytime we notice something other than a sensation is a way both to help the brains learn, okay, I get it, because the brain has a hard time seeing the pattern. It oftentimes doesn't recognize what it's looking at. It's caught up in what it's doing. So if we can kind of show the brain, hey, you're attending to this instead of that, right? It allows the brain to gradually realize, almost kind of like training a dog, okay, let me bring my attention away from this thing, back toward this thing. Again, the goal being to restore more of a balance. The other thing we're doing here, because we're smiling, we're introducing a positivity to the situation. Because what's really tempting to do is to use kind of punishment and negativity to try to accelerate the behavioral change. So we start thinking, okay, I get the point of this. Thought bad, body good. So anytime the brain goes on to thought, scold the brain, punish the brain, or do it a little passive aggressively. But brain, are we doing that again, right? You can kind of feel that negative energy, that kind of sapping energy there. That's the energy of scarcity, right? That's the energy of fear. So what we want to do is instead use the energy of love, use the energy of positivity. Really not just positivity, but actually full acceptance, right? Indiscriminate acceptance. It accepts the positive and the negative with what? A smile. It doesn't even necessarily differentiate between the positive and the negative, right? It's just differentiating, in this case, between sensations and everything else. And everything else gets the smile, right? Notice the sensations actually don't get the smile, right? We're just trying to train the brain to go there. The smile is kind of that gentle corrective that is allowing the brain in a positive vibe to realize, aha, okay, I've drifted again. And of course it's drifting. It's habituated to drift. It's been conditioned to drift. We've been teaching it to drift. I mean, we're looking at our phones all the time, right? Doing things like this. Drift, 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 right? We're pumping our brains into cognition, into thinking, away from our bodies, away from the present moment. We're trying here one smile at a time, right? One smile stretching at a time to help our brains relearn how to connect with the body, how to be present with the body. Now, what you'll find, again, if you're like me, is you've got maybe like 95% of the brain is working in thought land, and like maybe on a good day, like 5% is here like attending to the body. So what you could see is if 95% of the time you're smiling, or you're taking a small smile, letting it grow and grow and grow in response, pretty soon you're going to kind of get to the end here where your mouth is like, okay, I'm not sure I can smile much anymore, right? It's going to maybe get tired or exhausted, or the smile will start to feel really forced and strained and things like that. And so what you could do in the technique is obviously kind of experiment with it, play with it. You could take it to its limit until the smile kind of almost breaks. You could also just sense, if the smile is getting kind of to the point where it's like at its limit for you, you use that as a prompt to take a deep breath in, a deep breath out, and then you recommit to the technique and start again, right? And build that smile fresh. You maybe even take 5 breaths, 10 breaths. Maybe even take a period where you just say, okay, I'm not going to smile for a while. I'm going to do more of a neutral pose, right? See how that goes. You can even actually experiment with the opposite, frown. Right? Frown bigger and bigger. Each time you notice the brain drifting away, and use that as an opportunity to notice what happens. Again, spoiler alert, in my experience, typically this doesn't tend to work as well. Again, why? Because we're introducing negativity, judgment into the situation, hurts our vibe, tends to actually send the brain more into thought because the brain's trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong here? How do I fix this? I don't like getting frowned at. How do I solve it? Well, problem solver, go into the brain, right? As opposed to acceptance, go into the body. So again, those different techniques there. Take the smile to its max, refresh the smile occasionally with breaths, tweak and vary into neutrality or even into negativity and frowning to see what goes. And then just remember that the root technique, deceptively simple, in your meditative posture, notice what's arising, right? Noticing anything other than a sensation, smile.